The video is now out, and it shows a rare, high-risk interdiction at sea. French military helicopters swoop in under cover of darkness. Elite forces fast rope onto a moving oil tanker, and night vision cameras capture every second. This is France's first public glimpse into a secretive operation targeting Russia's sanctioned shadow fleet. This is the video France released overnight. A military helicopter hovers above an oil tanker in the Mediterranean. Through night vision goggles, armed personnel rappel down ropes onto the deck below. The ship is moving, the operation is precise, and it is deliberate. French maritime authorities say the tanker, named the Grinch, was intercepted on Thursday as part of a joint operation with the United Kingdom. British intelligence tracked the vessel, allowing French forces to move in. The ship had departed from Murmansk in northwestern Russia before entering the western Mediterranean. Footage shows French military personnel breaching the ship's helm station and securing the bridge. Crew members are gathered and questioned. Officials say the vessel is suspected of operating under a false flag, a key tactic used by Russia's so-called shadow fleet to evade sanctions. Western officials estimate Russia operates more than 400 aging tankers outside normal shipping rules. These ships often change names, ownership structures, and national flags. They are used to quietly move oil, the backbone of Russia's war economy, while skirting international sanctions imposed over Ukraine. According to French military officials, the Grinch was sailing under a flag linked to the Comoros Islands off East Africa. The crew on board was Indian. Authorities say the flag did not match the ship's true operating status, raising red flags that triggered the interception. The French Navy is now escorting the tanker to Anchorage for further inspection. More checks are expected to determine ownership, cargo origin, and sanction compliance. France says similar operations are likely to follow.
In the heart of the Mediterranean, a high-stakes naval operation unfolds, targeting what France says is Russia's secret lifeline at sea. France's Navy has boarded an oil tanker allegedly linked to Russia's sanction-busting shadow fleet, a covert network accused of moving oil to finance Moscow's war in Ukraine. France's President, Emmanuel Macron, confirmed the operation, saying the tanker was, quote, coming from Russia, subject to international sanctions, and suspected of flying a false flag. The boarding, Macron said, was carried out, quote, with the support of several of our allies. The vessel, named Grinch, was intercepted between Spain and Morocco after departing from Murmansk, a Russian Arctic port. Ship tracking data showed the tanker flying a Comoros flag, raising immediate red flags for maritime authorities. After boarding the vessel, French officials confirmed their suspicions. An examination of the ship's documents revealed serious doubts about the regularity of the flag, according to the Mediterranean Maritime Prefecture. The tanker is now being escorted to Anchorage for further verification. President Macron issued a stark warning, quote, "We will not tolerate any violation," he said. Calling the Shadow Fleet a direct contributor to the war, Macron added that these operations, quote, finance the war of aggression against Ukraine. The United Kingdom played a key role in the operation. British Defense Secretary John Healey said the UK provided, quote, tracking and monitoring, including HMS Dagger, which followed the tanker through the Strait of Gibraltar. Healey said, quote, "We are stepping up our response to shadow vessels to choke off the funds that fuel Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine." Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy welcomed the move. "This is exactly the kind of resolve needed," he wrote, calling for tougher sanctions against the entire Shadow Fleet infrastructure. Russian tankers operating near European shores must be stopped. His response came after publicly attacking Europe for being weak in face of Russia.
The issue of Russian oil is the same. It's good that many sanctions exist. Russian oil is getting cheaper, but the flow has not stopped. And Russian companies that fund Putin's war machine are still working. And that will not change. That will not change without more sanctions. And we are grateful for all the pressure put on the aggressor. But let's be honest. Europe must do more so its sanctions block enemies as effectively as American sanctions. Why is that important? Because if Europe is not seen as a global force, if its actions don't scare bad actors, then Europe will always be reacting, catching up with new dangers and attacks. We all see that the forces trying to destroy Europe do not face a single day. They operate freely, even operate inside Europe. Every victor who lives off European money while trying to sell out European interests deserves a smack upside the head. And if he feels comfortable in Moscow, it doesn't mean we should let European capitals become little Moscows. We must remember what separates Russia from all of us. The most fundamental line of conflict between Russia and Ukraine and all of Europe is this: Russia fights to devalue people, to make sure that when dictators want to destroy someone, they can. But they must lose power, not gain it. For example, Russia's missiles are produced only because there are ways to bypass sanctions. It's true. Everyone sees how Russia tries to freeze Ukrainians. Now, our people, Ukrainians to death at minus 20 degrees Celsius. But Russia couldn't build any ballistic or cruise missiles without critical components from other countries, and it's not just China. Too often people hide behind the excuse that China helps Russia. Yes, it does. But not only China. Russia gets components from companies in Europe, the United States, and Taiwan. Right now, many are investing in stability around Taiwan to avoid war. But can Taiwanese companies stop contributing electronics to Russia's war? Europe says almost nothing. America says nothing. And Putin makes missiles. And I thank every country, of course, and every company that helps Ukraine repair its energy system. This is crucial. Thank you to all who support the Pearl program, helping us buy Patriot missiles. But wouldn't it be cheaper and easier to just cut Russia off from the components it needs for missiles production? Or even destroy the factories making them? Last year, most of the time was spent talking about long-range weapons for Ukraine. And everybody said that the solution was within range. Now, no one is even talking about it. But Russian missiles and Shaheeds are still here. And we still have the coordinates of the factories where they are made. Today, they target Ukraine. Tomorrow, it could be any NATO country. And here in Europe, we are advised not to mention tomahawks. Not to mention tomahawks to the Americans, not to spoil the mood. And we are told not to bring up Taurus missiles. When the subject is Turkey, diplomats say don't offend Greece. When it's Greece, they say be careful with Turkey. In Europe, there are endless internal arguments and things left unsaid that stop Europe from uniting and speaking honestly enough to find real solutions. And too often, Europeans turn against each other, leaders, parties, movements, and communities, instead of standing together to stop Russia, which brings the same destruction to everyone. Instead of becoming a truly global power, Europe remains a beautiful but fragmented kaleidoscope of small and middle powers. Instead of taking the lead in defending freedom worldwide, especially when America's focus shifts elsewhere, Europe looks lost, trying to convince the US president to change. But he will not change. President Trump loves who he is, and he says he loves Europe, but he will not listen to this kind of Europe.
This is not the first such confrontation. In September, France detained another Russia-linked tanker, the Boracay, a move Moscow condemned as, quote, piracy. That vessel's Chinese captain is now set to stand trial in France next month. The Kremlin maintains that there is no Russian-operated shadow fleet. Instead, the term refers to any vessel that transports Russian oil outside the coverage of London-based insurance brokers. While their cargo may be sanctioned, Western powers have no legal basis to enforce these sanctions on the high seas under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. As Western nations tighten enforcement at sea, Russia's shadow fleet is facing growing resistance, not just through sanctions, but through direct action. And in the battle to cut off war financing, the Mediterranean has become a new front line.